Hi, I'm Kelly Lamrock, NDP candidate in Fredericton South. Now, you hear a lot of campaign announcements, and sometimes you can have a good debate about them, but do we ever stop and really look at what the parties are saying? Today, I want to take you through the math of Brian Gallant's decision to borrow $900 million to create 1,700 new jobs. Tell you a little bit why we're so concerned about it, and talk about what we could do instead. So, the Liberals say they want to borrow $900 million on top of the $5 billion we already owe. Is that a lot of money? Well, the entire early childhood education system, everything we spend on education for kids 5 years and younger, is $73 million. If you're spending enough for 12 early childhood education systems, you're borrowing a lot of money. But Brian says that he will create 1,700 jobs. Is this good value for money? Hey, let's do the math. In actual fact, that number of jobs at $900 million means that you are actually spending just over $529,000, $500,000 per job, or an amount that's around $88,000 per year. $88,000 seems like a lot to spend at a job. Isn't that really just like adding people to the payroll? I mean, at $500,000 you could hire 9 teachers, you could hire 7 nurses. But one job in infrastructure under the Liberal plan will cost you that much money. Now you're probably wondering, how do we pay that back? Glad you asked. Even if government could do this in 6 years, borrow for 6 years, pay it back in 6 years and get a 3% interest rate, you would actually wind up shelling out another $292 million in interest, making the total bill just under $1.2 billion. That's money that eventually we have to pay back. That actually drives the cost per job up over $700,000 per year by the end of the plan. Now, what does this mean for you and your family? Another important point. Right now, there's 349,000 people working in New Brunswick. If every one of those takes a share of what we have to pay back, that means government has borrowed just over $2,500 in your name. By the time you pay it back with prevailing interest, the amount of money you will actually be paying back every single person who works has just had the Liberals borrow $3,419 in your name to give 1,700 people a job. So, we're borrowing a lot of money. So how much are we really getting in jobs? Well, with 349,000 people working, 1,700 jobs is an increase of little less than half a percentage point in the unemployment rate, less than 1%. And with a $31 billion GDP, the Liberals' numbers say it'll raise the GDP about less than 1/3 of a percentage point. So jobs aren't up very much. GDP isn't up very much. However, borrowing $150 million a year is a 36% increase in New Brunswick's debt. Debt's up 36%, jobs and GDP less than 1%. You've got to decide if that's worth it. Other stimulus packages, like the one President Obama had in the States, focused on different things, focusing on help to low-income families, help to communities that will actually spend the money in the economy. They raised the GDP around 4%, but they didn't keep it up for 6 years. Why? You can't afford to keep borrowing for 6 years. If after 6 years you still need more stimulus, your stimulus didn't really stimulate anything. So by now you're probably wondering, if we're this deep in debt and it means this much to my pocketbook and we're only getting this many benefits, what really is the long-term impact? Okay. Here's where the problem is. You know, you think of all the ways New Brunswickers have sacrificed. Teachers who have been through huge upheaval to save a couple of million with super districts. People waiting for mental health services when $1.5 million would take care of the wait times. Legal aid backlogs that could be solved with less than $1 million. All these things government doesn't have the money, and suddenly we've got $900 million for infrastructure and the Liberals can't even tell you where it goes. Now here's the interesting part. The interest on this borrowing comes out to nearly another $300 million a year by the end. That means that we'll actually, over the life of this loan, be paying $27 million a year in interest payments. And we all know those interest payments have to come out of things like health, education, and social programs. So remember, that $27 million, which by the way is nearly twice what the new tax revenue will be, that actually has to either come in tax hikes or cuts to the very things that matter. Just to put this program in context, the ATCON deal actually put at risk $70 million. $70 million to protect 1,800 jobs. Now we're borrowing 12 times as much for about the same number of jobs. And folks, if somebody says to you, if this works, it'll be 1/12 as good as ATCON, that might not be the program we want to look at. Here's what this election boils down to. The Conservatives say we can keep governing badly and we'll bail ourselves out by selling off our resources. The Liberals now say we can keep governing badly and we'll bail ourselves out by borrowing another $1 billion with interest. Dominic Cardy's saying, let's fix how New Brunswick is governed. Clean up patronage, clean up government. Invest in programs like education, literacy that build a workforce that will attract employers from elsewhere. Support entrepreneurs by phasing out the small business tax, making sure angel investors get rewarded when they help start up businesses. Let's get private investment into New Brunswick so that we don't have to simply borrow money to spend $88,000 a year to create one job. We get a number of people working to put money into the economy. That's the new way the NDP is talking about. And in the end, I hope you take the time to really scrutinize what the parties are talking about, because our future depends on it.